Welcome back to Adobe live from the Awwwards here in Amsterdam. Wow, that was quite a day already. We're on our ninth guest here today, and for the next 25 minutes, we're going to be together with Oliver Lindberg. Oliver, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks
and
for having
Oliver is has a very special function. He works with words, so it's not so much about designing stuff, but more about thinking about how to express things. Or, well, you know what? Let's ask him. Okay. What do you do, Oliver?
So I do a few different things. So I'm an independent editor, a content consultant, and a conference curator. I think most people will know me from .NET Magazine. I used to edit the magazine.
Yes.
Later we dropped the dot, so it was just .NET Magazine.
Does the magazine still exist?
It does still exist. I think it's been running for more than 20 years now, a long time. So it's a magazine for front-end designers, front-end developers, UX designers, UI designers, or web designers, as they used to be called. And I went freelance a couple of years ago. So I now work with various clients to create content for them, to help them create content, to a little bit of content marketing. I work with Adobe and Shopify, a few like hosting clients, and I create content mostly for their blogs, but I also create like ebooks. I've created some ebooks for internet on topics like web performance, design systems, WordPress, all that kind of stuff. And I also, as part of .NET Magazine, I co-founded Generate, which is the conference that .NET Magazine runs. And now, as I'm freelance, I founded a little conference called Pixel Pioneers, which takes place in Bristol in England and in Belfast. I started with these two locations because both locations have got really vibrant communities. So that's a little one-day, one-track conference with workshops, also for front-end developers, web designers, and for that conference I organize everything. But I guess my specialty is content, so I have a lot of contacts and I curate the conferences.
Did you want to show us Pixel Pioneers?
Yes. Where's my taskbar gone?
Oh. Just do a new tab, Command T.
Command T. I just Googled it.
Yeah. It's disappeared.
I can't type either.
You can't type either.
I can't type,
okay.
Nothing's happening.
Okay, very weird. Let me see. Yeah, okay, let's see. Let's just close this for a second. There we go, okay.
Oh, there we go. So, Pixel Pioneers, there we go. So, the next event that's coming up is in Bristol on the 7th of June. And I've only just started, I announced it last week. There's going to be one workshop about web performance. We saw a talk earlier today about the importance of like user experience and fast sites. That's definitely like a really big trend. And Harry Roberts is one of the best experts in web performance. So in this workshop,
is this still called website optimization, or
it's more like performance. Like web performance. Especially like I think in the last couple of years, that's become a really big trend with like dedicated conferences about web performance. So in this workshop, Harry will explain how to build a fast site and why sites have become so slow. And it's often very simple things like optimizing images, like often people who work with content, who look after the content management system, don't really know that it has a big effect if you're uploading an image.
And everything that comes after the question mark has a big effect as well.
Yes. So it's like simple things, and then also like how does the browser actually work, and that kind of stuff. We're also going to cover web animations, which is a big topic, and CSS grids. I've got Rachel Andrew. You probably couldn't get like a better expert about CSS grids. So she's coming, and I've got Lizzie Linhardt, who works at she's a web developer at the university in Salzburg in Austria. So she's giving a talk about practical web animation, also with like a user experience angle.
Awesome. So with you, I think it would be interesting to talk about what's your experience, what's your insight in how things have changed, let's say over the past 5 years. I don't want to go over the 10 years, but...
Massively. I mean, like a few years ago, people still call themselves web designers. Now you've got like UX designers, UI designers, product designers, and all kinds of stuff. So there's a fragmentation, and also there's like a few big topics at the moment, especially like web performance. That's a big one. I also see like inclusive design, especially over the last year or so, has become a really interesting topic. People becoming aware of, for example, that you can't just translate a website and then people from different cultures or in different markets will just buy your products. That you need to design across cultures and take really research the user base in different markets and that kind of stuff.
So let's talk a little bit more about this diversity concept. This is something that you've been focusing on a lot, I think.
Yeah, it's something that pops up a lot at conferences. There's definitely a trend at the moment. People talking and becoming more aware about design ethics and the value of having people from diverse backgrounds in their design teams, especially as well, because if everyone is the same, if everyone as it used to be in Silicon Valley, people in their like 20s or 30s, usually white. You don't get diverse points of view, and so there's definitely a trend to diversifying the teams.
And on the other page that you had up here, there were some blog posts.
Yes. So I also create some posts, especially for the XD team at the moment in the US. They're all like user experience focused. So once a new Adobe XD feature comes out, I then go and try and find out what are the best practices, for example, about animation. When Auto Animate came out, I created a post about like what are the best practices in using animations and also micro interactions. How can it improve like the user experience, the kind of stuff that you have to keep in mind. There's another post coming up. Howard Pinsky and Jonathan Pimento from Adobe are showcasing some of the examples of the kind of effects that you can create with Auto Animate. What else have we been doing? So what was our responsive resize was another big topic, and voice. So the talk by Clive yesterday about voice experiences, and like SXD is one of the first like kind of like prototyping tools that to include voice prototyping. That's a really interesting trend because that's definitely something that a lot of people want to learn about.
How many of you in the chat have already started thinking about voice in their applications, or or have customers who have asked for voice applications? I'm curious to see that in the chat. So what are your takeaways from when you start thinking about? Let's start with the first one, the Auto Animate feature. What would your best practices be? What were your conclusions?
I think one of them is less is more. That just because these effects are available, you shouldn't just throw lots of like animations onto your site or app, but kind of like think about the user and how the effect can actually delight the user and improve the user experience rather than being like a distraction. I think that's definitely one of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You should have seen Melanie this morning with her little experiment with Auto Animate. It was like everything but user experience. It was just animate, and it was so cool as well. Like to see, but to your point, like if you want to have a good user experience, you should really like try to not exaggerate with the animations, but Melanie showed a very artistic approach to the animation, and also
another one is performance. As I said, that's important with images, but it's also important with animations. Because sometimes when we create animations, we don't realize that it may not look the same on a different device or on a different network. So it's always useful to test the animation on different devices or on different network conditions.
Are there still mobile websites that are optimized for a specific, bandwidth?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I think people test their sites a lot in DevTools and in the browser DevTools. I think that's really helpful. And then obviously if you have access to physical devices, that's super helpful as well. I think, Open Device Lab is one of them. If you haven't got all the devices in the office, and most people don't have access to all the devices, if there's like an Open Device Lab in your city, that's super handy.
Was it Dreamweaver that had that? Like something to try out on various browsers, like to see how the page would look like in all browsers together?
There's a few applications that do that.
Yeah, anyway, really that was interesting. But I see this being done less and less. Am I right? Or
the testing aspect, you mean?
Yes, like on various browsers and things like that.
Yeah, I think people should do it because it's really important,
Or have browsers become more and more similar?
They have become similar, but then they have become similar in the way that we are used to them, like in the Western world. What we often don't realize is how much effort it takes for someone, for example, in India or in Asia to access a website, and how they pay for their bandwidth. It's totally different, and the network conditions are very unreliable. So sometimes, that's why there's a big trend towards offline as well. Yeah. So you have to make sure that your site is kind of available offline as well, because in some countries the network conditions really go up and down.
Yeah, and this is something that how things work in different regions of the world is super important. I remember many years ago when I was still traveling a lot around the world. Sometimes I had to change my demo material because a specific color would be offensive in a certain culture or things like that. All of these things are very important, and now there's of course plugins in Adobe XD that allow you to quickly see how your mobile experience or website would look like in another language, things like that, which is kind of useful. There's also tools for checking your website for accessibility, visual accessibility. For example, for color, I'm colorblind, so like the red-green thing. Yeah. So I probably don't see as most people see, but things like that have to be taken into consideration.
There's also a very interesting case study when Mozilla launched a recent version of Firefox. In the US and in Asia, the sites look totally different. Like in the US and Europe, it was very clean, very minimalistic, just with a download button. While on the Asian side, there was a lot of information because people, there's a cultural difference there. People browse differently, and they need a lot of information up front. They want to know what other people are reading, and they follow trends. While in the Western world, people kind of want to be in charge and want to make a decision quickly.
That's a good point, but you also see that in looking at newspapers, for example. Like if you look at a Chinese newspaper, it's like got all of these little parts on the first page, and our newspapers tend to be more and more minimalistic, maybe with a big image and a headline.
Yeah. It's very different. That's why it's not really enough anymore just to translate a website and then just copy it.
Yeah, and then of course what's also very important is to develop for inclusion, also for people who can't see very well, or people who can't hear, or who can't who can't interact with the application like a usual use. No, how can I say that? Like a user that doesn't have that impairment, let's say. And a good example of that was I saw this tweet. Like how people find it very cool to change their Twitter handles, like to these weird letters and things that look like it's their name. But if you have a text reader actually reading that, it's like gibberish. So all of these things, it's a very interesting.
Or the hamburger menu. That's another thing that I learned recently. Like in some Asian countries, people have no idea what these 3 bars mean. Yeah. They instead have like a discover button because it just simply doesn't translate.
Yeah. From different browsers and screen sizes, I think it's not. I think it's not yet the time to add voice control to any app. That says Stefan. I disagree. I think I disagree with that.
Yeah, me too.
I think what was the number that Clive said yesterday? Like there will be how many million voice-enabled devices?
It was very high. I can't remember what the number was. It was very high.
In the millions.
Yeah.
even, I think even talking to your phone like this and sending a WhatsApp message,
Yeah.
that's already some sort of a voice interaction, right? Well,
This
actually,
is-
you're
It's definitely something
Yeah.
that's coming, so it makes sense to get to prepare for it at least, and to see whether it works for any particular product that you're working on.
Yeah. Most testing is for different browsers and screen sizes. Yeah, simply not good enough yet. Too much experimenting. Stefan, for voice you mean? Okay.
Okay.
Well, the difficult thing about voice is that artificial intelligence is not quite there. I mean, I was always convinced before that when I talk to Siri, Siri actually understands me. But no, that's not the way it works. The way it works is that people have to think about how would our user, for example, ask for a pizza. Okay, I want a pizza. Siri, bring me a pizza, or pizza now. All of these things have to be taken into consideration, and these are there's a name for it, I think, for all of these different types of things that one might expect to hear, to order something specific, and that's what makes it complicated. But I think as soon as artificial intelligence will be able to put concepts and words together, it'll be far more interesting.
Yeah, as Clive said yesterday, actually, we have the skills already. The skills are very similar to what UX designers have been doing.
Yeah.
It's just a slightly different approach, and you have to design a conversation rather than like something visual, which is different.
Yeah. Matthias says, too many users and corporations use Explorer still. Microsoft sends out a note a few days ago asking the world to stop using Explorer. What? Really? Microsoft sent out a note? I didn't get that note. Did you get that note?
No, I didn't.
No, I don't know. Maybe Matthias is being facetious. I don't know. People still Windows XP, and there's still, Munir, you're right. There's still people on old systems, but there must be a point where, you say, okay, I'm going to be checking, but only until then, like, right? I mean, there must be some point where you say, okay,
that's enough.
That's enough, right?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, you can keep optimizing forever, but at some point, I think you should just push it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Tim. That's exactly what Siri would say. Math script, capital letter A, math script, capital letter D, math script, capital letter O. Yeah. What did you try to write? ADO? Adobe. Okay. Very nice. Okay. All right. Yeah. Now that's about Explorer, but we can leave that. That's a debate that's been going on since the 90s. Are there any other topics that that you see are trending right now? That are, I mean, so we mentioned, of course, inclusion
and accessibility, which is kind of related to inclusion. And I think since inclusive design has become a bigger topic, I think it's easier for companies to include accessibility as well, so for people with impairments, if you're blind or something like that. But it's like people of different backgrounds as well that I said.
Yeah, I think that's also very, very important. Like, we don't want teams of 25-year-olds, white dudes in a room, like making decisions on how the world will interact with an application or an app or a website. So
I think that's why we are in a mess in a lot of situations because of that. A lot of people didn't think about that. When they created their apps, because
they assume it's just going to be the same everywhere, and these assumptions
and it isn't, and that's
can
why
make or break a service or product. Absolutely. And so we have that. Coming back to the to your findings about the Adobe XD feature. So we talked about animation. Let's keep it simple and don't overdo it, especially for optimization and speed, because they can become complex or not even doable. No, I wouldn't say that everything is doable, but like you say, the more complex, the more math the app has to do.
And it kind of needs to tie in with the brand as well. So that it's consistent throughout, if you have various products, the interactions that you create, it has to be kind of consistent.
And then we talked a little bit about voice, and the third thing was...
we talked a bit about like chatbots and machine learning. That's kind of related to
Oh,
voice.
oh, right. Yeah. No, but you mentioned another feature that you did a deep dive into from Adobe XD.
Oh, responsive resize.
Responsive resize, yes,
Yeah.
because that's also part of my presentation that I did yesterday, like how the team actually approached responsive resize. So of course there was many users like thinking, oh, I want to be able to export something and it's responsive, but that's not what Adobe XD was all about. So what we focused on is, for now, to really focus on how to resize artboards in Adobe XD, so that you can prepare mockups or prototypes for all types of different sizes of devices. So what's your experience with the resize?
As I said, like testing on different devices is very important. So and to have the option that to test it and to prototype it and to resize it automatically, that's brilliant. That's super useful.
Yeah, and the thing I always say is that automatically, of course, there is no magic there. So of course, things can look a little bit awkward. So basically, I think the auto resize brings you there like 80%. Let's say like 85%, and then of course maybe there's little corrections one has to do to adjust graphics to the new screen size. But I think it saves a lot of time to be able to create these screens very, very fast. Hey, hello from Josep is saying hello from Valencia. We have our very own Josep here. He's sitting right there. He's from Barcelona. Yeah. Oh, Ava from Biarritz. Oh, and now everybody's saying hello. Okay, very good. So you were talking about AI, like this. This came in the conversation about voice interactions. So what's your take on AI?
I think is something. Again,
artificial intelligence.
It's another thing that designers need to kind of prepare for, because it's definitely going to happen. There are some really interesting developments, and in the machine learning, it's like the machines are taking over, so we need to design for them.
Yeah. And the thing is that I always, one thing that's very important to understand, artificial intelligence will become super useful, to help us with repetitive tasks. One thing that artificial intelligence can't do is be creative. Okay, so humans still need to be creative.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence can do math very well. So I would be scared if I was studying math, because that's the type of thing that a machine can do. Right, much more efficiently than a human, but creativity is still, still a very, very important factor.
Yeah. And you can start preparing for this now. You can start getting ready, because a lot of these systems are kind of like available. And when you go to conferences, you hear about machine learning all the time, and how that fits in with user experience. There's people like Josh Clark that travel the world to help designers design for future technologies like this, and to design for what's next.
Yeah. So super interesting times coming up. I love the fact that you dedicate your life to writing about these things, thinking about these things, and sharing your knowledge with all of us. So I thank you very much, Oliver. Our 25 minutes are up. That was fast.
Very fast.
Right? Very fast.
Thanks for having me.
But we'll be right back in exactly 5 minutes with Bert Hagendorn, who's already here somewhere. Bert, there he is, yes. So Bert will be up with Stephanie in just a few minutes. So stay tuned, and thank you again, Oliver.
Thank you.